Imagine this. Every single cargo ship that slipped beneath the waves meant thousands of soldiers on the front lines without food, fuel, or bullets. It meant a family in Britain going hungry, a factory grinding to a halt. This wasn't a single battle on a specific day. This was the Battle of the Atlantic, the longest, most brutal campaign of World War II, and the very survival of the Allies depended on its outcome. From the moment war was declared in 1939, Germany knew Britain was an island nation, utterly dependent on imports. Cut that lifeline, and Britain would starve and be forced to surrender. The weapon for this task was the U-boat, the dreaded German submarine. Lurking beneath the waves, these underwater predators were silent, invisible, and deadly. Commanded by skilled and ruthless captains like Otto Kretschmer and Günther Prien, the U-boats didn't hunt alone. They formed wolfpacks, a tactic where multiple submarines would coordinate their attacks on a group of ships, overwhelming any defenses with a swarm of torpedoes. In the early years of the war, a period the U-boat crews called the happy time, the wolfpacks were devastatingly effective. Merchant ships, often old, slow, and sailing alone, were easy targets. The Atlantic became a graveyard of steel. Allied losses were staggering, unsustainable. Winston Churchill himself later admitted that the only thing that truly frightened him during the war was the U-boat peril. If the lifeline was severed, the war was lost. Faced with this existential threat, the Allies had to innovate, and fast. Their answer was the convoy system. It was a simple concept, but incredibly difficult to execute. Instead of sailing alone, merchant ships would be gathered into massive fleets, sometimes over 100 strong, and escorted across the treacherous ocean by a protective screen of warships. These escorts were the sheepdogs protecting the flock. Leading the charge were the destroyers, fast, heavily armed, and designed for anti-submarine warfare. But the Royal Navy and its allies didn't have enough of them. So, they developed a new type of ship, the corvette. Small, cheap, and quick to build, corvettes were the workhorses of the Atlantic. They weren't glamorous, and their crews endured some of the worst conditions of the war, constantly tossed about on the violent North Atlantic swells. But armed with sonar and depth charges, these little ships became the bane of the U-boat wolfpacks. A convoy under attack was a terrifying scene of explosions, burning ships, and desperate naval combat. The battle wasn't just fought with ships and guns, it was a battle of technology. The key to finding a submarine was sound. The Allies relied on ASDIC, what we now call sonar. It sent a ping of sound through the water, and if it bounced off a metal hull, the operator would hear a faint echo. It was a painstaking, difficult art. Once a U-boat was located, the attack would begin. Escort ships would race over the suspected position and drop depth charges, barrels of explosives set to detonate at a specific depth, hoping to crack the sub's pressure hull with a massive concussion. The Germans, in turn, were constantly improving their U-boats, making them faster, deeper diving, and equipping them with advanced torpedoes. For a time, the Allies also gained a crucial advantage with radar. Centimetric radar, small enough to be fitted to patrol aircraft, could detect a surfaced U-boat from miles away, even at night or in thick fog. A submarine on the surface, recharging its batteries, was at its most vulnerable. Suddenly, the hunters became the hunted, as long-range Liberator bombers could appear from the clouds without warning. But the single greatest turning point in the Battle of the Atlantic didn't happen on the ocean at all. It happened in a quiet, unassuming country house in England called Bletchley Park. Here, a team of brilliant codebreakers, including the genius Alan Turing, were working tirelessly to crack Germany's most secret codes, generated by the infamous Enigma machine. The Germans believed Enigma was unbreakable. They were wrong. When the codebreakers at Bletchley Park finally broke the naval Enigma codes, it was a game-changer. Suddenly, the Allies could read the U-boats' secret messages. They knew where the wolfpacks were gathering, what their patrol areas were, and which convoys they planned to attack. This intelligence, codenamed Ultra, allowed the Admiralty to reroute convoys away from danger and send hunter-killer groups directly to the U-boats' locations. The wolfpacks, once the masters of ambush, were now sailing into traps. By mid-1943, U-boat losses had skyrocketed to unsustainable levels. The tide had turned. We often focus on the admirals, the generals, and the codebreakers. But the true human cost of this battle was borne by ordinary men in extraordinary circumstances. The crews of the merchant navy were civilians, yet they faced a mortality rate higher than many frontline combat units. These were fishermen, dock workers, and young men seeking adventure who found themselves in the crosshairs of a torpedo. When a ship went down, especially a tanker carrying oil or fuel, it could explode in a massive fireball. Survival in the freezing, oil-slicked waters of the North Atlantic was measured in minutes. Their bravery is often overlooked, but without them, the entire Allied war effort would have collapsed. The victory in the Battle of the Atlantic was not glamorous, but its strategic impact was absolute. Securing the sea lanes meant that Britain survived to continue the fight. It meant that millions of American and Canadian soldiers, along with mountains of tanks, planes, and supplies, could be transported to England. Without control of the Atlantic, there would have been no strategic bombing campaign against Germany, and more importantly, no D-Day. The invasion of Europe, the liberation of France, and the final defeat of the Axis powers were all built upon the foundation of this hard-won victory at sea. It was a battle fought day and night in all weather for nearly 6 years by countless unsung heroes who ensured the lifeline held.